shame is where you are, it's an internal process about who you are as a person to behave the way that you are in these specific situations that's compromising your values and your beliefs. Guilt is there for the explicit purpose of saying to you, you are compromising your values right now, change the behavior and be accountable. If I value honesty and I walk into a store, put something in my pocket and walk out, I am automatically going to feel guilty because I've compromised my value system.
I'm almost going to ask you right now about what it is when you sit in guilt, shame, and humiliation, because I think it's a good indicator of finding out where you are emotionally so you can regulate, get out of that, but not
Right.
sit into it. So I wanted you to speak to that.
Yeah, first of all, before you get into anything like that, you have to differentiate between what guilt and shame are.
Gotcha.
Because a lot of people really struggle with understanding the concept of these two and what the difference is between them. So start with guilt. Guilt is an emotion that we experience when we've participated in an action where we've either done something or haven't done something that compromises our values and beliefs. So if I value honesty and I walk into a store, put something in my pocket and walk out, I am automatically going to feel guilty because I've compromised my value system. Guilt is there for the explicit purpose of saying to you, you are compromising your values right now, change the behavior and be accountable. So when we start looking at guilt, it's really important to ask the question. Quite often people will say to me, I feel guilty. And the first question I ask them is, what's the action that you've taken that's compromised a value? Because 9 times out of 10, that's not present. This is where people experience a lot of emotional confusion when it comes to these two emotions. The difference between guilt and shame is that shame is where you are, it's an internal process about who you are as a person to behave the way that you are in these specific situations that's compromising your values and your beliefs. So if I take something from a store, I'm automatically going to feel guilty. My internal critic will then let me know what a loser, an idiot, how stupid I am for doing these things. And that's what activates shame. So it's important to recognize quite often when you ask people, what is it that you've done that's compromised your values? What's the action that you've taken that's compromised your values? They can't come up with one. So I ask them, so what is it that's going on in your system? Well, I'm such an idiot and I'm so stupid for doing those things. I can't believe I made that mistake again. Okay, that's shame. Right? So differentiating between the two is really important.
Yeah, and I want to press you on the shame just because I have a question about this as well. And I think one of the things I think that if I'm humiliated or I'm guilty of something, it's a feeling obviously goes against my belief system. I was thinking shame was like where my internal critic says, you deserve this.
Yep.
Like I feel shameful because if I was humiliated that someone yelled at me in school, then I was just humiliated, or I felt guilty that I did something. Shame, take it to a whole nother level. Like I was humiliated by somebody and you deserved it.
Yeah.
Which made me feel shamed. Is there a difference there?
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is the difference between shame and toxic shame.
Okay.
So both guilt and shame, they serve a purpose in your system, like I said, right? So if you are doing something that's compromised a value, guilt is letting you know to stop doing that. We're meant to actually embrace that emotion, and because it's, I don't like the way that makes me feel,
pivot.
I'm going to stop doing it.
Yeah.
Right? That basically removes the guilt. Shame is there to say, I'm behaving in a certain way that's not how I want to behave. I'm not being the person I want to be. Okay, I need to stop doing that. We want to embrace it, stop doing it, and then you won't feel that way. The problem is that, as I said in the last conversation, and your internal critic is an internalized version of something that you heard when you were a kid, or like a child's interpretation of something that you heard when you were a kid. Mm-hmm. And we just internalize this. And if you think about the things that we hear when we're children, right across the board, shame is often used as a parenting tactic to change behavior. Yeah. So in certain circumstances, I learned this really difficult in a difficult situation when I've heard people say in certain circumstances, like, what did you do that for? What's wrong with you? You should be ashamed of yourself, when they're talking to a child. Yeah. Right. So if that message gets continually passed on to the child, it then gets internalized with the intention, that internal critic that gets created in your system has the intention to motivate you not to do something. but the actual impact of that language activates toxic shame in your system, and it's very difficult to get away from. So it's based on the language that we've internalized from a young age. So if shame is meant to be there, right, then we just adjust the behavior. The problem is if you've got an internal critic that's activating toxic shame, when you adjust the behavior, it still keeps telling you that you deserve that. You're an idiot. You're stupid. You're a loser. You shouldn't do those things. What the hell's wrong with you? You know, put your face straight. And all you're doing is you're just creating this level of toxic shame in the system.
Yeah, I find that extremely hard to get out of it. I mean, obviously, when you're going into toxic shame, I mean, there's a whole layer of onions inside of that conversation as well, which would make sense why it sits in the pattern of addiction as well. So, what would be things to get away from that?
Yeah. So and this is where we come down to the foundation, right? Because without a foundation for recovery, as you said, shame, guilt, humiliation. I also throw sadness and loneliness into that particular box, if you like. They're the foundation for addictive lifestyles. So when we start doing the work, when we start stepping into recovery, what we're doing is we're basically taking away. So if we understand what addiction is a coping mechanism. That's all it is. So I use a substance as the solution to my problem. The problem underneath the surface is that I can't handle that. I feel guilty. I feel ashamed. So I use a substance to stop me feeling guilty and ashamed, which then when I sober up, I feel guilty and ashamed again. So I use the substance to try to cope with the guilt and shame, which then when I sober up, I feel guilty and ashamed again. And this is the cycle of addiction that happens. So when we're starting to make behavior changes in anything, whether we're talking about addictive lifestyles or even just, trying to change any kind of behavior, we want to build a foundation that allows us to have coping mechanisms, healthy coping mechanisms, when those emotions get activated. Because if you remove the substance or the process that you're using as a coping mechanism, but don't create that foundation, as soon as those things come up, you're just going to be activated and you're going to spiral out of control, trying to find this extreme way of coping with things. So putting a foundation in place is probably one of the most fundamental things that we have to do. And that starts with a really solid support network of people that you are reaching out to on a regular basis, having conversations and clearly communicating exactly what it is that you're looking for. Hey guys, first of all, I want to thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed the content. This particular chat was filmed as a part of a podcast series to support my good friend, Chuck Basti, and all the work he does as a mental health advocate at Chuck's World of Infinite Mojo. If you want to see the full podcast or just see more of what Chuck does on his social media platform, check out his YouTube channel that's linked in the description below. When it comes to what's going on here, I am on a serious mission to make this platform profitable. Why? Because when I do, I am committed to making sure that every single penny of profit that's made from this YouTube channel goes back into serving the community that needs it most. So, as always, please like this video, leave a comment below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel to get all the latest content available right here at The Liberation Place. Come join us for our live online conversations every week. I'll put all the links in the description below, and let's get the word out there about living the life you want to live, not staying stuck in the life you're currently stuck in. Hopefully, see you soon.